Elijah the prophet is one of the most powerful and revered figures in the Old Testament. His life is a testament to unwavering faith, divine power, and relentless obedience to God in the face of national apostasy. Elijah first appears suddenly in 1 Kings 17 during the reign of King Ahab of Israel, a time marked by rampant idolatry and spiritual decay. Ahab had married Jezebel, a Phoenician princess, and under her influence he promoted the worship of Baal throughout Israel. This provoked the Lord greatly, and Elijah was sent as God's mouthpiece to confront the nation and its leadership. Elijah's very name means "My God is Yahweh," which is fitting given his mission. His first recorded words are a bold proclamation to Ahab. "As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, before whom I stand, there shall be neither dew nor rain these years, except by my word." This announcement of a drought was a direct challenge to Baal, who was believed to be the god of fertility and rain. Immediately after delivering this message, God directed Elijah to hide by the brook Cherith, east of the Jordan River. There God miraculously provided for him. Ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning and evening, and he drank from the brook until it dried up. Once the brook dried, the Lord sent Elijah to Zarephath in Sidon, the heartland of Baal worship. There he encountered a poor widow gathering sticks. He asked her for water and bread, and she explained she only had a handful of flour and a little oil, just enough for a final meal for herself and her son. Elijah told her not to fear and to make him a small cake first, assuring her that the flour and oil would not run out until the Lord sent rain. She obeyed, and the miracle occurred. The flour and oil did not run out for many days. During his stay with the widow, her son fell ill and died. Elijah took the boy to his room, prayed fervently, and stretched himself over the child 3 times. God heard his cry and revived the boy, proving to the woman that Elijah was truly a man of God. After more than 3 years of drought, God commanded Elijah to show himself to Ahab. This led to one of the most dramatic events in the Bible, the confrontation on Mount Carmel. Elijah challenged the prophets of Baal to a contest to determine the true God. Both sides would prepare a sacrifice, but they would not light the fire. Instead, they would call upon their God to send fire from heaven. The prophets of Baal went first. They cried out from morning until noon, danced, and even cut themselves, but there was no response. Elijah mocked them, suggesting their God was asleep or on a journey. Then at the time of the evening sacrifice, Elijah repaired the altar of the Lord, placed the offering on it, and drenched it with water 3 times until the trench around it was filled. He prayed simply for God to reveal himself. Instantly fire fell from heaven and consumed the offering, the wood, the stones, the dust, and even the water in the trench. The people fell on their faces and declared, "The Lord, he is God." Elijah then ordered the execution of the 450 prophets of Baal. After this decisive victory, he told Ahab that rain was coming. Elijah went to the top of Mount Carmel, bowed down and prayed. He sent his servant 7 times to look toward the sea. On the 7th time, the servant reported a small cloud rising. Soon the sky grew black, and a heavy rain came. Elijah ran ahead of Ahab's chariot all the way to Jezreel, empowered by the Lord. However, the triumph on Mount Carmel was quickly followed by despair. Jezebel, furious at the death of her prophets, vowed to kill Elijah. He fled into the wilderness, sat under a broom tree, and prayed to die. He was exhausted and overwhelmed, but God did not rebuke him. Instead, he sent an angel to provide food and water. Strengthened by this, Elijah traveled 40 days and nights to Mount Horeb, also known as Sinai. There he lodged in a cave. God asked him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Elijah expressed his feelings of isolation and failure. God told him to stand on the mountain. A great wind tore through the mountains, followed by an earthquake and a fire, but God was not in any of these. Then came a still small voice. God spoke to Elijah in the gentle whisper, teaching him that divine power is not always displayed in dramatic ways. God gave Elijah new instructions. He was to anoint Hazael as king over Syria, Jehu as king over Israel, and Elisha as his prophetic successor. Elijah found Elisha ploughing a field and threw his cloak over him, symbolizing the transfer of prophetic authority. Elisha left everything to follow Elijah and became his attendant. Later, Elijah rebuked King Ahab for coveting Naboth's vineyard. When Naboth refused to sell his inheritance, Jezebel orchestrated a plot to have him falsely accused and stoned to death. Ahab took possession of the vineyard, but Elijah met him there and delivered God's judgment. Dogs would lick up Ahab's blood where Naboth died, and Jezebel would be eaten by dogs. These prophecies came true years later, demonstrating the accuracy of Elijah's words. Elijah continued to serve God until the day God took him up to heaven. Before his departure, he visited several prophetic communities with Elisha, who refused to leave his side. At the Jordan River, Elijah struck the water with his cloak, and it parted so they could cross on dry ground. On the other side, Elijah asked Elisha what he wanted before he was taken. Elisha asked for a double portion of his spirit. Elijah said this was a hard thing, but added that if Elisha saw him being taken up, his request would be granted. As they walked and talked, a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated them, and Elijah was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha saw it and cried out, my father, the chariots of Israel and its horsemen!" He picked up Elijah's cloak and began his own prophetic ministry. Elijah did not die, but was taken directly into heaven, one of only 2 men in Scripture to have such an experience, the other being Enoch. Elijah's prophetic ministry was not only powerful but deeply symbolic. He stood as a representative of the prophets and later appeared with Moses during the transfiguration of Jesus in the New Testament, representing the law and the prophets bearing witness to Christ. Additionally, the prophet Malachi foretold that Elijah would return before the great and dreadful day of the Lord. This prophecy found partial fulfillment in John the Baptist, who came in the spirit and power of Elijah to prepare the way for Jesus. Elijah's life is a testimony of courage, obedience, and God's sustaining power. Through miraculous provision, bold confrontations with evil and divine encounters, Elijah remained faithful in a time of deep spiritual darkness. He trusted God even in his lowest moments, and God honored him by taking him to heaven without tasting death. His legacy continues to inspire believers to stand firm in faith, to speak the truth boldly, and to listen for the still small voice of God amid the chaos of life. If you enjoyed learning about the Bible, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment about what story you want to see next.